All right, everyone, welcome back. We're here once again with Andrea, no skip today, and we're talking about healthy coping skills, how to work with your employees as well as yourself, and what are some easy things to do that can help you cope with anxiety or depression. And as well as I'm going to talk about how things that I do that help me in my day to day. Because as an IT person, we love our dark basements. We love our light controlled environments. And there are some easy tricks that you can do to like get yourself out of a funk, get yourself out of an issue. So I'm here again with Andrea Walter, my lovely wife, but also more importantly, a mental health pharmacist who works with people every day on these issues. So rather than Skip and I just making up stuff, we are bringing this professional on to show us what's going on, um, and actually bring some kind of authority to, hey, here's what works with people. If even if it sounds cheesy, this works. And so let's talk about that. Andrea, can you tell us a little bit more about what do they mean by coping skills? Like what does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean everybody goes through hard stuff whether you see it or not. It's always hard to know on the outside, looking at someone else. You never really know what other people are going through. But nobody's life is perfect. Everybody deals with stress in different ways. And I think there are some ways that are better than others at managing. um, and so having some healthy skills, or having some activities that you can turn to when you're not feeling your best, really can help to turn things around.
Yeah. So are all coping skills good skills?
Well, no, I mean, no. I mean, a lot of us really do try to do our best, when we're dealing with a lot. We really try to make the best decision we can with the information that we have. And in the last episode, we talked about, if you're really struggling, if your energy is down, people can turn to caffeine. And, maybe that's okay to have a cup of coffee in the morning, but if people are drinking energy drinks throughout the afternoon, the downside of not being able to sleep that night and kind of perpetuating that cycle might be kind of a down thing. I think turning to alcohol is a pretty socially acceptable way to relax and unwind. And sometimes people feel like it's going to help me. It's going to help me sleep. But just one of the downsides is just that even though alcohol makes you feel sleepy and helps you feel more relaxed, it actually decreases that quality of sleep. So those are just two things off the top of my head that may not be a good way to manage some of the stress that you're going through. On the good side, I really do recommend regular physical activity to a lot of my people. If you think about the symptoms of anxiety, when you're feeling really stressed, your heart rate goes up, you're breathing faster. You might feel like you're shaking a little bit. Those are actually some of the same things that people feel when they're physically active. So, I mean, if you're walking at a really brisk pace, or if you're, a person who's a runner, or you do, other types of workouts, you are breathing faster, your heart rate is up. Um, when your body feels that way on a regular basis, like when you get that through physical activity, you're actually better able to manage anxiety, when you have those symptoms, because it's like your body recognizes, like, hey, I feel this way pretty often and I know it's going to be okay. So that, yeah, that physical activity can be a really great thing. And you've mentioned staying in the dark. We're just heading into a really great time of year where the weather, at least in Nebraska where we live, is really a good time to be outside and get some exposure to daylight and sunlight. And the more you can kind of be exposed to that daylight, your brain is going to understand
Yeah.
better when it's time to be awake and when it's time to be asleep. So hopefully getting some of that outdoor time is going to help you sleep better at night.
Yeah, and like I have a daylight back here. It's one of my backlights, and I also have several lights pointed at me, but I'm still in the dark here. So when I go like around lunch, about this time when which we're recording, I usually go upstairs, and our main floor is very vibrantly lit. And it's healthy, or sitting on the back deck or going on a walk. you don't want to because you're feeling depressed or anxious. You want to work your way out of that. You want to come, if I work harder, I'll be fine. But sometimes taking that 15 minutes to go out and get a little physical activity, which increases that dopamine burst, and then getting that sunlight on you, your body responds and it starts to wake up and it starts to feel more vibrant. And that's a good thing,
Mhm.
but you're not going to want to do it. You're going to want to buckle down and solve the problem in front of you and
Yeah,
avoid going on these things because I don't have 15 minutes. I need to get this done now.
yeah. To me, yeah, and I struggle with this too. Like I've always got one more thing I could do. My to-do list is never done. There's always more to do. And yeah, I think there is a temptation, power through, like get to the next thing. But if you don't intentionally give yourself a mental break, your 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 brain will do that for you. You're going to be less efficient with your time. I feel like, when you're tired, if you haven't given yourself that intentional break, maybe you're more likely to scroll through your phone, to check your social or to check your emails. And it may feel like you're being productive, but are you really making any progress towards
Yeah.
your goals? Whereas I've learned, when I need a break, and I step away and I can step away from the screen, the computer screen. And especially if I can get outside, then I think about the way my brain feels. And I don't know if anybody else feels this way. I've never actually talked about this before. But sometimes I just feel like my brain is all tangled up, like with all these thoughts that I've had.
Yeah.
And taking a walk, like I'm just like thinking like, okay, how am I going to untangle all of these thoughts that are in my head? And kind of giving yourself that brain break might allow some of the more important thoughts, like it might help you to reprioritize and be refreshed so that when you go back at it you really are going to be more productive with your time than you would have been otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm a resistant guy on that, right? I have a funny story I tell about how in the past, like I used to be in the basement of this big corporate office, right? As one of the top engineers there, and the lights kept going out. And none of the engineers said anything. There's like 60 of us down here, right? From desktop to server to asset management. And the lights kept going out. And no one said anything because we liked the dim, right? And then one of the out of town directors came in and said, "Man, it's really dark in here. Let's get this lit up for everybody." And you just heard this silent groan from all of the engineers as this well intending director came in and had the maintenance people replace all the light bulbs with these beautiful daylight 5000K light bulbs. And as soon as the director left, you saw these engineers get up there and turn the fluorescent light so it went out again. But I can see like the mental health of that. I don't think the guy was thinking mental health at the time. He's thinking, I want to do something nice. But he just didn't ask like, what is it they need? What is it they want?
Hmm.
He just told us what all we were going to have.
Yeah.
And so it's these things like, but I got into this habit at that environment to biking to work. I would bike to work and I would bike home. And that helped me an insane amount to really like focus. And I would start the day off having a nice brisk bike. Like sometimes it was cold out there, guys. Or one time I biked in, I was wearing jeans and my legs started burning because I got in frostbite on the way into work. And so I ended up wearing snow pants from then on. But the whole point is it's like I didn't want to initially do that stuff, but I had to mentally turn this switch of like, this is healthy for me. Like shutting down that server and doing the maintenance isn't something you want to do. You want to work on a project, but you may need to swap out that hard drive. You may need to swap out some parts or swap out the whole server itself to keep the environment healthy. It's annoying, but
Yeah.
it needs to be done. Same thing with you. Like, what kind of physical activity can you do on a regular basis? There's a reason why the Fitbits have that little buzz that happens on them. Once every hour, you
Hmm.
should get up and move.
Yeah, and I'm a big workout person in the morning. I love to start my day with a workout, and when I'm like really putting a lot of effort into it, sometimes I just think like this is going to be the hardest thing I do all day, or just kind of get started. Like if I can do this, I can handle anything throughout the day. But then there's a lot of evidence showing that just like sitting all day, like even if you get up and you work out for 30 minutes and you sit for 8 hours straight after that, there's a lot of negative health impacts. They say sitting is the new smoking.
Yep.
so so again, yeah, that's why the smartwatches will prompt you once an hour or whatever you set it to get up and move around. And they're really, even if you're not doing a 30-minute workout every day, there are a ton of health benefits of just getting up once an hour and moving for 2 minutes. There are
Yeah.
studies showing it decreases your blood pressure, it helps your blood sugars. You're going to have more energy and feel better to just kind of take that, get some movement in.
Yeah. And I'm gonna point out one of Andrea's little habits lately. Is we're both in this house. I like it sidelong glance there. We're both in this house, and she's on the main floor with all the beautiful light, the nice office and everything. And I'm down here in the corner, but that's where I prefer to be. Uh, but when you do your bathroom breaks, you don't go to the bathroom right next to the office. You go up the stairs.
Hmm.
And so a great thing for you as an engineer is to think, okay, instead of going to the bathroom right next to me, why don't I go across the office to the far one? Yes, it's going
Hmm.
to add a 30 seconds onto your time, but that health benefit from that 30 seconds is going to be really great.
It adds up. Yeah.
Yeah. And as a lot of us know, like when you've been coding or you've been troubleshooting a problem for a long time, walking away for 5 minutes and getting that glass of water, going out to lunch and coming back, the problem seems a lot simpler. And imagine having those little breaks throughout the day. It doesn't have to be something insane. You don't have to get into a yoga pose and do that. I used to in my old office do vinyasas once every hour just to keep my blood flowing, not to be anything big. It was just enough to like get my exercise, just to like get my blood pumping back through my body. And it made
Yeah.
me feel really good. But I also
Hmm.
want to spend like the next few minutes on this podcast talking about like things like grounding techniques. Like what is grounding? Can you define something like that for me?
Yeah. So grounding, yeah, when people, these are for panic symptoms or for kind of more severe mental illness or kind of mental health episodes, I guess. One of the things that can be really helpful, it kind of helps reset your brain. Um, but grounding is, looking for five things you can see, looking for or just kind of sensing five things you can smell, five things you can touch, five things you can hear, and that can kind of help pull your brain away and kind of help reset some of those unhealthy thought patterns. um yeah, so that would be a type of grounding. Or even in this, I feel kind of silly bringing these up because I feel like to somebody on the outside, it was like, how would this ever work? Like, this just doesn't make sense. um, but you can activate a vasovagal response by putting an ice cube on your forehead and just kind of laying back and kind of letting that kind of feeling that sensation and focusing on what that feels like. So those are a couple things.
Yeah.
I think meditation and mindfulness, just kind of like taking some time to kind of, even though we always have a lot of thoughts coming in, like a lot of people say, I have trouble like with racing thoughts. You can just kind of take that in and recognize that that thought is there, and then try to like let it go, and then just try to spend some time clearing your mind,
Yeah.
and engaging in some of those mindful practices. It's difficult to do, and if I'm being honest, I don't really do it a lot. I do spend time in prayer and meditation. My faith is an important part of my own mental health. So I kind of do that instead of mindfulness. But if you're looking for something that's maybe a little bit more spiritually neutral, like looking up apps that can help you engage in mindfulness are really beneficial.
Yeah. And just to add a practical application to this. So when we're talking about like grounding techniques or the ice cube on the forehead, those things like during the day when you have those moments where like you're feeling completely overwhelmed or you're feeling like the world is against you, that it's hopeless. Like I'm never going to get ahead on this. I'm never going. these absolutes that are going through your head that you can say, okay, hold on a second. I'm going to try that grounding technique. Okay, five things
Mhm.
I can see. Oh, there's my unicorn. There's my calendar. There's my tissue box. And then like that's the things you can see, the things you can touch. I can touch my desk, got my mouse, got my keyboard, and all of a sudden you look up and think about what you were just thinking about. It may be a little bit better off. It might not seem so overwhelming. It's because you're having that panic attack, that anxiety of like this hopelessness, this where I'm not doing well. And if the grounding doesn't
Mhm.
work, try an ice pack on your forehead. Heck,
Mhm.
that just feels good no matter what. Ice pack on your forehead, lean back and just, let yourself relax. But
Yeah.
your body will respond to this stuff. Your
I
body
like that
will
you see your unicorn, that's one of the things that you see.
Yeah, I've also
Um
got Minsk over here from D&D, I got my little buddies. I got Bo-Katan, and so having these things available to you, you if you're embarrassed about talking about mental health, or you're like, "Just suck it up." This is how you suck it up.
These
Grounding
are things
technique.
you can do. Yeah, that's the first step is like thinking about what you can do. I also gave a presentation recently on gratitude and how many benefits that has. And so I try to engage in a practice. I have a planner. I had a planner that gave me space, and now I create space in my new planner where I try to write one good thing every day. And at the end of the day, Adam and I talk about three good things that happened during the day. Sometimes it's one of those days where the good thing is that the day is over and
Yep,
we're ready to go to
I'm in
bed.
bed.
But focusing on that gratitude, and I love listening to podcasts, and I forget where I heard this, but they were talking about when you're feeling overwhelmed, get rid of your to-do list, which I was like, "Wait a minute, no, that doesn't make any sense, like, I can't get rid of my to-do list." But they said, "Write down a done list. Write down what you've done. Write down what you have accomplished." And then when you look back at that, that really can help maybe reset some of those thoughts too.
And so I'm going down our list and our notes here, just making sure we're covering all these great topics you came up with, like the gratefulness, the mindfulness, mindfulness, just like how am I feeling? Like,
Mhm.
and is this correct? Am I lying to myself? Am I doing some bad things? You're the best judge, but sometimes you need an outside judge. If you cannot figure out what's wrong with you or what's going on, that's where you get a therapist and they'll help you diagnose and make that problem simpler. With
Yeah,
engineering,
and
we're all about diagnosing, and sometimes you need that outside of eyes. And so that if your mindfulness is failing, if your self-diagnostics are not working, you might need to get another set of eyes to be like, it really sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not happy in your workplace. Why is that? And they can ask you better diagnostic questions and help you get to the root of it. The therapist isn't going to give you the answers. They're going to help you come to answers. A good therapist will help you be mindful because you're the person who knows your mind.
right, yeah, and I fully support, like, I've engaged in therapy and I've found it super helpful. If you feel like you're not ready to take that jump, I do want to just take a step back and just affirm how important it is for all of us to have some degree of social connection. I know last week you and Skip talked about, introvert versus extrovert, but even if you're an introvert, nobody is an island. And just kind of maybe taking an inventory. Do you have someone in your life that you can confide in?
Yeah.
And, maybe it's scary to talk about, like, I'm not feeling great. Um, but maybe find somebody that you trust enough to have that discussion. Social connections are really important. And I see a lot of people, it's really hard. A lot of people, I feel like to some degree, mental illness is really closely connected with loneliness. Like a lot of people are really lonely. They don't have a lot of good social connections. And so, troubleshooting, I like to try to help people think like what's something you could engage in that would be meaningful to you? Like what
Yep.
activity do you enjoy? Like how can you create that social connection? Like a board game night, or if people like knitting or quilting, or a D&D group, or whatever that looks like, whether you're introvert or extrovert, everybody needs some kind of social connection. And so, yeah, taking an inventory and thinking about like who can you talk to when things are tough.
Yeah, and I was just I've been scrolling down our podcast list because somewhere here we have mini vacations where we talked about this. You don't have to go on a big week-long vacation. You don't have to do this huge thing. You can actually say, I'm gonna go play board games with my friends tonight.
Hmm.
You know what? I'm gonna have a good social time, and then afterwards I'm gonna pick up. I have been helping with middle school ministries this year, and sometimes I'm like, "Ugh, I really don't want to go sit with a bunch of sixth graders who are bouncing off the walls and asking 10,000 questions." And I mean, but then I get done with that evening and I feel better. Like I feel like I'm more centered. Like life's problems aren't as bad now. And so I can walk into this stressful situation with a bunch of kids and then walk out feeling better than I have for, days.
Hmm.
Social helps. And I'm an extrovert. I feel like I'm sliding into introvertness, but having other people around you that where you're stepping outside your box is gonna help. And whether
Yeah.
it's coworkers or people who don't know anything about IT, find that social connection. And so I want to close this out here a little bit. You have three things here. Like one of them is, and we've talked about this as well, is sleep. For the
Yeah.
love of all that's holy, sleep, people.
Prioritize sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you get enough sleep. Um, I don't do this anymore, but I would always have a hard time stopping what I was doing at the end of the night. And I've heard other people do this too, but have a go to bed alarm.
Yeah.
Set an alarm for when it's time to go to bed. When people are having trouble with sleep, one of the things I ask is like, do you feel like you're giving yourself adequate time for sleep? Yeah, just think about what time you need to get up for the day. Make sure you're getting that. Really, most adults need minimum of 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours of sleep for quality. And I can really tell, when my sleep has suffered. And just having a relaxing routine before bed. We talked a little bit about limiting caffeine, limiting alcohol, even limiting screen time before bed can be really helpful. So, screens emit a wavelength of light that is similar to morning sunlight. So, like looking at a screen does not really prepare your mind for bed or
Yeah.
your mind for sleep. So, that's hard for me. I mean, I like to scroll through my phone at the end of the day or watch a TV show at the end of the day. But yeah, if you're looking for ways to improve your sleep, that could be something.
Yeah. And then that I cannot stress to you all as an engineer how important that is. I mean, you're like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. I said till midnight. That's fine. I only need like 5 hours of sleep." Like, yeah,
And I don't
that's
think
just what
so.
you're used to. It's what you're used to. I see all these teenagers these days and they stay up till midnight and they're on their phones and then they get up in the morning, they go to school and they're stressed out all the time. And I'm like, "Man, I see this in the workplace as well. People just get used to it. You just get used to behaving in a way that's super unhealthy for you, and you
Mhm.
need to turn that around. See what it's like to get adequate sleep, adequate rest,
Yeah.
and you gotta get your body into that rhythm where it knows that it's 10 o'clock. This is the time when I usually shut down. So the body is going to start preparing itself. And so having that sleep made a world of difference in my life. When I started prioritizing sleep rather than just prioritizing playing games or working late or going through nights. And if none of these skills work, if sleep isn't helping, if mindfulness exercises aren't helping, grounding isn't helping, talk to a therapist. There might be something bigger that you need to identify. And
Yeah, and I would
don't
even say you
wait
can
until
start.
you're in your 40s to do this. And plus you're
Yeah.
changing as you get older, your hormones are changing. And you wanna make sure that you're
Yeah.
prioritizing like, okay, do I need to do a different diagnostic? That's where your therapist is gonna come in.
And I think even starting with your primary care provider can be really good. If you feel like things aren't quite right, like believe me, they are having this conversation with many other people. Like we can feel like we're alone. Like we can feel like we're the only one going through this, but this many people are struggling. And so, you know, we talk about exercise and sleep and gratitude. Like you can be doing all of the right things and still not feel great. Start with your primary care provider. Like if your energy is low and you're not feeling great, like there could be a medical cause.
Yeah.
Okay, so start there. They are also equipped to talk to you about starting a mental health medication, starting something that's going to help. Like I said, an antidepressant might help you with sleep, might help you with aches and pains that you're struggling with. And therapy also is good. I mean, if you work at a place that has an employee assistance program, that is a good resource. Um, BetterHelp, this isn't an advertisement, but it's an app. And and that's kind of a forum that I've used to engage with a therapist before. It's really handy. Like you can do telemed, texting, phone. And then yeah, I always want to put in a plug for the crisis line. I know last time we talked about suicide. The crisis line really is a resource that people can use. Like if you just feel stuck, if you don't have anybody to talk to, if you are having thoughts that are starting to scare you, use that. They will help connect you to resources in your area. They are trained in crisis management. They will help get you connected with people that can help and help facilitate some of that.
Yeah, and I really like that suggestion of the BetterHelp and the 988 because
Mhm.
it's things that are right at your fingertips. We talked about
Mhm.
like lethal
Yep.
means safety, separating guns from your house. If you feel like you're in a bad spot, put the guns in a locker at your local gun range.
Mhm.
Give them to your neighbor, something like that. And having an easier way to solve the problem at hand, like in your hand. You guys all know how to use apps. You guys all are technology people. So having the better help, just like right there, I can tap it and I can go there rather than seeking a bad mechanism to help.
Mhm. Yep.
988, it's three numbers. Don't feel like you need to be like on the edge of a cliff to talk to 988. Start ahead. It's easy.
Yeah.
You're not going to make fun of you. No one's going to judge you. You're going to get somebody who cares and can help you say, what's the next step?
Yep. Mhm.
Diagnosis is key here, people. Just like anything you work on, you're engineers, you're good at solving problems. How many times do people not call you because they don't think they need an IT support? They'll just figure it out. And they should have called you before that mess came in. Now you've got to figure out the mess.
Yeah.
Treat your body the same way. Use the professionals, use the outside help, use the good techniques that are going to make you successful in your life so that you don't burn out. Andrea, thank you for coming on. Thank you for helping us be aware with Mental Health Awareness Month, and keep up the good work. And we'll hopefully have you on again.
Thank you.
Thank you.